All right, good evening, everybody, and welcome again to History and a Drink. I'm Shawn.
And I'm Frank, and tonight we're going to be talking about circumnavigating the globe. But let's start with our drink. So,
Yes.
these sailors in their early voyages, it would take like 2 to 5 years for them to go around the world. And then when you look at some of these races and stuff, those sailors are doing it for, long periods of time where they're not able to go to shore. And one of the biggest diseases that they had to deal with was scurvy.
Scurvy, and so scurvy, actually, one of the ways to help eliminate and stop scurvy is vitamin C. So we have our drink tonight.
Yep.
It's a rum cocktail Frank concocted.
So this is a play on a drink called the Ordinary Seaman. And so we've called this one a Seaman's Vitamin C.
Excellent. So for all of our locals here, they're going to be serving these tonight. If you guys want, just ask your bartender, and we can do that tonight. So
that's why they called the British sailors.
That was, you were correct, absolutely. So once again, we're talking tonight about circumnavigating the globe. So we think of our planet, big giant planet, and especially going back in time, that's, especially nautically, going around the world was a big deal.
It was, and you didn't really have any maps or anything to know where you were going. And the maps that they then make were so rudimentary that many people still got lost. So we start with the first recorded one. There are lots of prehistory stuff where people are traveling the world and stuff like that, different trade routes, but we don't know because none of that was recorded. So the first one is the Magellan expedition, but we're going to call it the Magellan Elcano expedition.
And this is out of Spain, right?
This is out of Spain because Magellan dies partway through the journey. And so 18 of the original crew are all that make it back on the ship, the Victoria. And the person that they make captain at the end, his last name is Elcano, and that's why we call it the Magellan Elcano expedition. But it took them, they started in 1519, and it took them all the way to 1522 to make it back. And this wasn't planned to go around the world, it just happened like that.
Because they were trading all over. We're trading, silks and the Silk Route and everything going through there and around the world. So it just happened that they just kept going.
Right. So the first Englishman to do it, and the second trip around the globe, is Francis Drake. And Francis Drake goes by, everybody else in the world calls him a pirate. The English call him a privateer because he had that letter of marque that allowed him to raid any foreign ship that he wanted.
Yeah.
And so he went around South America.
So he was a pirate working for the British government, basically.
Right. He went around the tip of South America to get access to the gold ships coming across the Pacific and from the Indies, or the Andes Mountains, up to the Mexican part of the empire there.
Because where the Aztecs and everything, like we talked about last week with the gold, that's where they were shipping everything back to.
Right, and so they really wanted to get a hold of that, and they knew they would surprise him, and they're successful. But he couldn't run the other way back, so he just kept going west. West.
So west, yeah.
And it takes him, he started in 1577, and it took him to 1580 to make it around. But he's the first commander that made it all the way around.
Okay.
All right? Now, the first planned voyage was...
Because both Francis Drake and Magellan, they were just cruising. They weren't really, it wasn't a plan.
It wasn't a plan. The first planned voyage was by a guy named Thomas Cavendish.
Okay.
All right. It took him 3 years, or 2 years and 49 days.
Okay.
All right. And he went as a deliberate trip to do this. So he knew kind of where he was going, what he had to do to get there, because he had talked to Drake and all of that prior to.
Now, also, too, these are the times before the Suez Canal, before the Panama Canal. So for you to go around the world, you literally had to go around the tip of South America, around the tip of Africa. So, I mean, it wasn't just a straight shot as the bird flies.
And you had to go all the way back up to Europe, which is in the northern hemisphere.
Yeah.
Didn't the British,
Who?
Drake?
No.
Nope. He was good. He was a proud British citizen.
All right, so then we have the fastest voyage around the globe. Now here is the requirements for it.
So wait, now we're jumping into modern times.
Modern times.
Yeah.
So what we have, you have to start at the same port and end at the same port. You have to go over the equator, right? So most of them start in the North Atlantic,
Passover.
over the equator, South Atlantic,
Yeah.
the Southern Ocean, around Antarctica, back into the Southern Atlantic, over the equator, North Atlantic to the same port.
So
right?
anybody doing nautically, that's how they did it.
Yeah, so the fastest time was a crew of 6 men, right? And it was a wind-powered vessel called the IDEC-3, and they did it in 40 days, 23 hours, 30 minutes, and 30 seconds.
Holy smoke! Compared to in the past when they're doing these big giant clippers and schooners and they're going, 3 years.
3
So
years,
that's pretty
exactly.
impressive.
Now, this then sent me down a rabbit hole on racing around the world. And there's tons of different races, which there's solo races, there's team races, all of this kind of stuff. So the 2 big races is the Vendée Global and the Volvo race, all right? Ocean
Gotcha.
race is what it's called.
And they're both sailboat races.
Both sailboat races.
Yep.
Now the Vendée Global is a single-handed solo, right? So you go around the world. It started in 1989, and they do it every 4 years. So starting in 1992.
Yeah.
So it's kind of like the Olympics of sailing.
Sure.
But the average buy-in, so the average cost of the ship, all of the stuff for it, is somewhere around $5.3 to $5.4 million. Now I was reading that there's boats as expensive as $60 million
Holy smokes.
in this.
Yeah.
So we're going to need some sponsors if we
I
ever
was
want to
going to
do
say
that.
exactly. Do our trip around the world.
But it was really fascinating. So the next opening for the race, you can start submitting your applications on, or the applications close on 10/2 of 2023.
October
right?
2nd. Yep.
So, and you have to have an open 60 boat.
So
right?
a 60-foot boat, and that's the one man.
Yeah. And for these races, what you have to do is you have to go at least 21,600 nautical miles. You have to cross the equator, cross every meridian, so that's the north and south
Yep.
lines, and then finish and start in the same port. Right? And so the Volvo race is basically the same, but it's every 3 years.
Gotcha.
Right? Now there's
Still a one-man race?
still one man
Still
race.
a one-man race.
Now there was one that I think you and I could do. All right? It was called Clipper Around the World. And there's no experience needed. All you need is cash to do it. All right?
Like a terrible idea.
So they have 8 legs, and each of those legs they have somewhere between 13 and 16 individual races. And if you complete every part of it, then you have sailed all around.
Now, do you actually have a boat working for you, and you just basically sit in the dock and drink? Is that your?
No,
Yeah,
I don't think we would be drinking too much on the boat. That is the downfall.
Yeah.
All right, we would probably be better off on a cruise ship that goes around the world.
We do need to prevent scurvy, though, so
Yes,
we're going to
exactly.
need to drink our daily rum rations.
So now the first woman to go around the globe single-handedly.
Still talking about boating now.
Still talking about boating.
Okay?
Her name was Christiane Chosnowska, and she was from Poland, and she traveled a total of 28,695 miles.
By
All right?
herself.
By herself. All right. After this school year, I might want to take a trip that I can spend that much time by myself.
Yeah.
All right. And there was a woman competing against her, but she finished 39 days later than her.
Gotcha.
Because you got to figure they're not stopping anywhere.
Yeah.
It's nonstop. So you have to be able to repair your own boat. You have to have all that food, water, everything on there to do it. Right? Now, that moves us to mechanically powered ones.
Okay. So
Right?
these were all sailboats before, now mechanically powered.
Yeah, so in 1922, this may be more our speed.
Yeah.
The Cunard Line, the Laconia, became the first cruise ship to circumnavigate the globe. And today, most cruise lines have a ship dedicated to doing long distance travel like that. So we just need to find our sponsor and then go and
Go
do
on a
that.
boat for a year.
Right? In 1960, the first nuclear submarine circumnavigated the globe completely underwater.
Which we talked about that a couple weeks ago, and I believe that was the Triton, wasn't it?
Exactly, the Triton, right? And then we have where somebody tried to do it in a powerboat. Now, that must have hurt like hell, because every time I see those boats out there racing,
Yeah.
they just look like
Bouncing
they're
and
beating
going all over,
the
yeah.
crap out of them. It took them, the boat's name was the Earth Race. It took them 60 days, 23 hours, and 49 minutes to circumnavigate the globe. I want to know the fuel bill.
Exactly
on that bad
right.
boy. right? So for the longest time, sailing was the only way that you could circumnavigate the globe. But then, with the invention of the airplane, we have individuals who begin to try and fly around the world.
And I would think it would be much easier because all of a sudden now you don't have to go around the tip of Africa. You can do a straight shot as the bird flies.
Exactly. And what you're going to be able to do, especially with the jets and the bigger planes, they're going to be able to take advantage of the jet stream and use the jet stream as a tailwind and push them and go faster.
Yeah.
So the first group to go around the world was a group of Army Air Corps pilots, right? They were flying a plane called the Douglas World Cruise Biplane, and it took them, this was in 1924, right? So not long after going, right?
And it wasn't a continuous shot. They would stop and make stops at airports and work their way around, but eventually made themselves all the way around the entire world.
Yeah, exactly. Then we have like a dirigible or an airship,
Zeppelins.
the Zeppelins. And the first one to do that was the Graf Zeppelin in 1929. Now that might be a kind of a luxurious way to go.
I think about Indiana Jones. When the Indiana Jones, they had the nice meals and the drinks, and
exactly.
There was
No ticket.
things. No ticket, exactly.
Right? Now, as we said, the flights don't have to cross the equator. They're going to use the jet stream, right? So their rules are they have to start and finish at the same point.
Yep.
They have to cross all the meridians, and they have to travel at least 36,770 miles.
Which that's in between the Tropic of Capricorn and the Tropic of Cancer.
Exactly.
Right?
So those are the two lines that is that distance, right? Which is, that's 36,770 kilometers, right? About 19,000 nautical miles, right? Ballooning, I started reading about it, and then all these big words came on the screen, and I didn't understand.
Ballooning is different because they have no real way to control. They just are following the air as it goes around.
Yeah, so
it really takes it back.
I read, and then I didn't write anything down.
Yeah.
Right? Now, the first person to go in outer space and circle the globe is another way. And that was done by Herman Titov, Russian, in Vostok 2. All right? And he did 17 and a half orbits around the Earth. Now we get into some crazier ones, right?
I like the crazier ones.
So imagine you have a boat.
Okay.
It's only powered by you rowing it.
Okay, so a rowboat or kayak, basically, I
Yep.
see here, paddling.
And you're going to go around the world in that.
Sounds like a lot of work.
It does sound like a lot of work, all right? So this man named Jason Lewis did this. It took him 13 years to do it, all right? Now,
Just paddling for 13 years.
right, and where do you get the money to do that? Where do we find sponsors that just let us do these whims and go and do stuff? So he finished doing it in October 6th of 2007, all right? And I can't imagine what he looked like getting off the boat
exactly.
or all of that. And it was called Expedition 360,
Okay.
right? Then we have, in 2012, a Turkish-born American who his name was Erdin Udu, and he traveled around the globe, but he went on both land and sea.
Okay.
So, but on land,
But all human powered.
human powered. So he walked or rode a bike on land, and on sea he either used a rowboat or a kayak. Again,
Nice.
how crazy is that to do those things,
Yeah.
right? Now, it took him from July 10th, 2007 to July 21st, 2012 to do that. He traveled a total of 41,196 miles, right? Now, he wasn't constantly traveling. In there, his total travel time was 1,026 days, all right?
That's still a lot of days. That's 3.5 years.
Yeah, to do that.
Yeah.
Now, to figure these things out, there has to be some kind of governing body that does that, and that was Guinness Book of World Records,
Okay.
and a group named Explorer Web, right?
So they're the ones that set the rules, set the standard, and set the pieces for it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So then I just have a few one-offs for you, all right? So the first woman to go around the globe was Jeanne Barrett, and she did it in 1666 to 1669, right? We have the first steam-powered ship to go around, which was the HMS Driver, and it took 4 years to do that, 1845 to 1849, right? Then a Spanish frigate, so it's the first ironclad,
Okay.
named the Namanica, traveled in 1865 to 1867.
Yeah.
We're still talking multi-years to do this, even
Right.
though we're steam powered and we can go in a straight line, which blows my mind. And thinking about how fast they must be going in that sailboat compared to a real ship,
Right.
a motor powered ship, right? Now, in 1969 was when the first person did it non-stop single-handed, and his name was Robin Knox Johnston in 1969.
It was Johnson.
Johnston in 1969. And then you have a guy, the youngest to ever do it, single-handedly, non-stop, right, was Jesse Martin in 1999.
Yep.
And he was all of 18 years old.
I made it around the entire world unassisted.
Unassisted.
Yeah.
And then we're starting to see these new ways of doing it. So we have solar-powered vehicles, right? So that's a solar-powered sailing ship named the Planet Solar, did it in 2012, right? And then that takes us, that's all the sailing stuff, and it takes us then to flying, right? So the first plane to fly around the globe non-stop, right, was the Lady Luck 2, captained by James Gallagher. It took him 94 hours, 1 minute. He was flying in a B-50 Super Fortress, and so this is a prop-driven plane.
Sure.
And they did mid-air refueling all the way back in 1949.
Wow. Mid-air refueling with a prop plane.
Yeah, that sounds kind of scary, right? Then in
But now we're talking 94 hours versus the 3 years when it used to take the boats to go around.
Now, the first jets to do it were 3 B-52 bombers, right? They did it in 45 hours, 19 minutes. They only refueled twice.
Wow.
To do that. So that also tells you the reach that our military has with these weapons to go wherever, right?
Even in 1957.
Even in 1957, right? Then we have the first woman to go around the world. Her name was Jerry Mock in 1964, right? Now, the first non-refueled circumnavigation was aboard the Rutan Voyager, and it was Dick Rutan and Jeanne Yeager, right?
Now I would think that so that's more like a glider plane.
Yeah.
Where
So, you know when you were at the beach and you see those birds that are way up high, like the frigate birds or the albatross, and they're just gliding and they're using those wind currents? That's what this plane did. And just using that, it took them 9 days to go around, right? 9 days of no landing and going, right? Then we see the first balloon, right, non-stop balloon, was by Bertram Piccard and Brian Jones in 1999. And then Stephen Fossey has done it the fastest in 67 hours, going 37,000 kilometers.
In a balloon.
In a balloon.
Wow.
So it's just amazing when you keep thinking about this. The one that I think blows my mind the most is an 18-year-old, right? All the 18-year-olds I know have no responsibility, don't do anything.
They can barely make it to the grocery store, let alone make it around the world. So.
Exactly. They don't even know where to find their food that they're going to do. And somebody had to help him to get there. But he's able to do it. And what a thing to put on your college resume, right?
Exactly. So, well, awesome. So that was our little talk tonight about circumnavigating the globe and going around the world and all the different ways that we've done it and the history of that. What do we have going on next week? Is it a secret?
It's a secret.
Excellent.
We're still working on it.
Still working on it. So, but we'll be at. But thank you guys for joining us for tonight. Hopefully you learned a little bit something fun. For those of you who are going to make it down the Bahia Hut, we do trivia next. And so for you guys here, we're going to do a nice fun night of trivia, and we'll have a good old time. But thank you guys for coming down.
But tonight you got one more night.
Yep.
Or one more, and then to get the 6 buttons.
That's
that you
right,
need
to get your
the
t-shirt. Exactly.
So if you need to come down tonight, or you have to be here all 6 nights after this.
That's it. All right.
All right. Enjoy. Have a great evening.
Thank you guys.